Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. Happy Monday, everybody. I have one of the people that I can't live without in the car with me. We're recording in this car studio. I've got Danielle with me, and all of my clients know Danielle, but our listeners don't know you. No. So I'll explain who you are to Bethany Consulting. So you've been with me now for what?
2 years, almost 2 years, or a little over 2 years.
A little over 2 years.
Yep.
It feels like forever, but
I know.
You're just behind the scenes with a lot of the needs of my client. You're there, and you spend a lot of your time helping out with just supporting our clients with hiring efforts. And it's funny now, clients will always ask me, like, what are the current trends? I'm like, I have to ask Danielle because Danielle is the one that knows. I feel like you're just constantly evaluating what's going on from the job posting platforms, trends that you're seeing, even down to coordinating with the applicants. You'll spot different trends at different times. And so I feel like one of the benefits of you seeing multiple clients trying to hire at the same time is that you get a pulse of kind of what's going on, which is really cool. So I had to have you on today because hiring is just like never ending.
Yes.
As you know, for our clients, we're always hearing of one of our clients in need, and so I feel like listeners are probably in the same boat.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting to see, especially the trends. And I feel like in the DFW area alone, we have a need for several different positions in the dental industry. And unfortunately, everybody's hiring for the same type of person. I would think that one of the trends that I've seen is just the quality of candidates lately. For whatever reason, since COVID, people aren't happy where they're at, and that's understandable, just because they probably got let go during a time where they were at an office for years, or the dental office closed, sold their practice, whatever it is, because during COVID it kind of opened up that door for reevaluation of your business, and do I still want to do this, and do I need to go ahead and retire and spend more time with my family? So we've seen those things, and so the trend since then has been just the quality of candidates that are coming over, looking for other jobs, and they're just not staying at places very long. And so I think that's the number one thing that me and our assistant Sydney, she what we see is the quality of candidates are coming down because they are, or what we actually look at are how long they're staying at each position. That's like the first thing we look at. We also look at their credentials, and we also look at where they worked at last. That could make an impact as well. So the trend of quality candidates is low. So what that does is, it also makes you really reevaluate what you want. Do I want to train new hires or new people fresh in the field, or do I want to wait 3 or 4 months until you find a hygienist,
or a year,
just whatever it takes. I mean, some of your clients have had to wait that long, but they eventually found their person. So it just really depends on so that would probably be my first piece of advice is reevaluate what you need first, and then go after that before just putting out a job post or, asking, hey, do we have anybody? Because once you realize what you need, you'll find what you want. And other trends, I would say, is the pay. Yeah. The pay. Since COVID, I think there was they know they're in need. That just point blank, they know their worth. And so, especially coming fresh out of school, the hygienists are already wanting like $45, $50 an hour. I think fresh out of school. Dental assistants are getting in the $22 to $25 an hour, which is a typical, used to be an office manager pay. So we're starting to see them asking for more pay. And again, this also is dependent on area as well. It's not as bad like like in Dallas versus Frisco.
Yeah.
But it's not much of a difference.
Yeah.
So that's another trend I'm seeing is the pay has gone up significantly since I even started working for you.
Do you see like a lot of either our clients or as you're looking into Indeed posts? Oh, and I said Indeed. I want to come back and ask you a few questions about Indeed, but do you see if they put the pay on the post that makes a difference in how many applicants you get?
It could be a double-edged sword. If your pay's not like in that sweet spot, then you won't get enough applicants. If you hit the pay in the sweet spot or a little bit higher than the average, then yes, you will get more applicants. That's like one of the biggest things you can do is benefits. Make sure you have all your benefits listed on the job post, and then the pay as well. So that's what's going to draw people. And I think even Sydney has asked us before, does your client offer benefits? Do they, people are asking. So some of them, it's not a big deal if they have it, but others, they really need it. And that would be a deal breaker for them to even move them forward. So.
Well, and that's such a good piece of advice. We've got to make sure that the pay is competitive. If you're going to put it on your post, which it sounds like it's helpful if it's on there along with any benefits, but you got to make sure your pay is in that competitive range.
Yeah.
And then you might actually get more applicants than you were expecting because of that.
Yeah, and that takes a little bit of research. Even I've gone back and researched what like the national averages or even Texas's averages are on pay for like dental assistants and dental hygienists. Not so much office because that's a broader field, the office assistant. But for the dental hygienists and dental assistants, it's always good to kind of just do your own research, look every couple months because it does, change, and just see what that, and then that way you're prepared that when you do get those applicants who are asking for higher pay than you normally would pay your normal staff, then won't be as shocked. It won't come as like, oh my gosh, they want $30 an hour, or something crazy like
so
that.
True. Like, what's wrong with this person?
And they only have 2 years of experience, so yeah.
So pay we should include in the job post, any benefits. Do you feel like there's anything, well, I guess let me ask this question first. How many applicants do you feel like a doctor should expect when they put a job post out there?
Right now, per week or just overall?
Maybe per week.
Per week, you can expect about maybe 5 to 10 applicants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's for hygienist, or not for hygienist. I would maybe 1 or 2 a month. It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
For office assistant, it depends on. This is another trend. Go back to trends.
Yeah.
But another trend I'm seeing with office assistants is I'm getting blind, like I call them blind appliers. So what they're doing, they're just applying because they're not reading the entire post. And so we're getting a lot of medical office assistants, which is not the same, not technically the same, especially when we need certain, they need certain certifications, or they need knowledge like an insurance verification, and treatment schedule or coordination. So, but you will see an uptick at first when you first apply, but you're going to be weeding a lot, through a lot of applicants just to pull out that aren't qualified. So, and once we get talking about Indeed, I'll talk about how to work around that. Yeah, but so it's hard. It's hard to manage and also make sure you're finding the right quality candidates. Yeah.
So it sounds like hygienists, maybe 1 a month, maybe 2 a month if you're lucky.
And that's not qualified. That's just they could be right out of school.
Like anybody.
Yeah, anybody at this point.
Or somebody with a poor job history, like you mentioned, might apply.
Yeah.
And then front office assistant or business assistant, it sounds like you could potentially get more of those per week, but a lot of those are unqualified.
Right. Yeah.
And then RDAs, do you kind of see an average of 5 to 10?
Yeah, it's 5 to 10 qualified, maybe 3 or 4 out of those 10, just because of their job history. It's more about their job history and then what specific qualifications that the client's asking for. So like if they have sealant experience, because for the pediatrics, and then if they have what's the other one?
Coronal polish.
That one, and even nitrous certification. Okay. So some clients do want them to have that, but in the time of need right now, they may have to be pushed aside and just
take what you can get. I feel like we say that all the time. It's this reassessment, like you said at the beginning. It's a reassessment of what our deal breakers for me. Like, I have to have this. And then what are things that you can overlook? Yeah. And sometimes you get the better candidate if you can overlook some of those certifications that the assistant can get after they're on board with you. But if they're the better candidate from a personality standpoint, longevity at their practice, like, don't compromise on the quality of person. Maybe compromise on the level of experience that you're getting.
Yeah, you have to make, you're going to probably end up having to make a sacrifice somewhere where, and that's another piece of it. If you're willing to take on a first year or a second year even, are you willing to train them? And what does that look like, and have those things in place. So it's really about reevaluating what you need for your business and then what you need for your patients. It's just, if you're losing patients because you don't have staff, well, you may have to cut back on a few things and go, okay, I'll take a first year
and I'll be willing to train them. Yeah, that's true. We've even had a couple of clients that have brought on an intern for a few weeks and ended up hiring those interns, and that would have been something they wouldn't have considered before.
Exactly. And the beauty of that is you can actually pay them almost, I don't want to say underpay them, but you can pay them a lower rate than you normally would your staff because they are interns and they're there to learn. Most internships, as you know, aren't paid, so it's a good benefit, and you can have them on a contract basis where they're only there for 3 months or whatever, and then once if you like them, great, you can keep them. If not, they'll like, okay, thank you. So it's definitely cheaper than hiring a temp agency. So, but those I think are more seasonal. Like, you have to catch them right out of their, right after they're out of school. So, but that is
the schools have to know that you're willing to accept those. And I think you make such a good point, and that may be like the tip of the day on this is the paid internship. Most of the time they're going into these internships, they have to have them to complete their schooling, and they're free. But when if we're like, man, we want to fight for those interns because we know there's a chance we'll get a good RDA, you can do a paid internship, come out looking pretty from a pay standpoint, but you've got better potential because you've got that intern in your practice and can keep them. Or, like you said, if they're terrible, the internship is done. Bye-bye.
There you go. That's it.
But she served a purpose for that period of time. So I think that's a really good idea that if people are having trouble finding RDAs, open up your mind to that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So let's see. I think that answers some of the trend. Well, and again, you may have already said this, but pay, it sounds like whatever clients are probably, or practice owners are probably thinking is the normal pay, you may need to do some research and reevaluate that because pay continues to kind of be on the rise from what we've seen for all categories. I want to talk a little bit about Indeed because I was actually just coming from a client that we've been supporting as he tries to find a hygienist, and his one hygienist that he has was asking us what platforms we were using for hiring, and she said, I didn't see the job post on Dental Post, and I explained that we've seen some trends where Dental Post is not as visible as it used to be, and then I told her that we use Indeed a lot. So tell me about Dental Post. What are some of the things that you're seeing when we do have a client using Dental Post?
We're seeing lately, we're seeing the same people apply that have already been declined several times, and for various reasons, whether they've missed a scheduled call with Sydney, or whether they've no-showed an interview or just weren't very good during the scheduled call that we've had with them. So we're seeing the same type of people apply. We're also seeing less people apply. I think over the last year, because when I first started working for you, Dental Post, we were getting tons of applicants on there, so I'm not really sure why. I haven't looked really into why that is, but if they are, this is the only thing, if they are using Indeed, most of them are fresh out of school. So I'm wondering if they're promoting it at school. Hey, go register for here, and you can find if they didn't last at their internship or whatever they're at. So other than that, we're just not seeing many people utilize Dental post. Yeah. And I think a lot of it's you have to pay for. I don't know on the applicant side, but I know it's expensive on the client side.
Yeah.
Even though it is up for a month, and that's another thing, you can't turn it off once you're done hiring. You just continue to get applicants. So, we've kind of shied away. I feel like we've kind of shied away from it for the last year.
We have, and sometimes if the client is really desperate, we'll say, okay, great, do both Indeed and Dental Post. But I just feel like from a quantity standpoint, we tend to get just much more potential on Indeed.com. Yeah. That's not to say there's not a time and place for Dental Posts. Right. It's just we have seen the applicants go way down.
Yeah, that and the only caveat to that is Indeed may get you more applicants, but they're not as qualified because these Dental Post is specifically for for anybody in the dental field. So
So I want to ask about Indeed, and then we also use some social media to help promote positions, so we'll talk about that too. But Indeed, so I have a lot of clients that they relied so heavily on Dental Post in the past that they get to Indeed and they're like, I have no clue what I'm doing.
I don't blame them.
You've thankfully been able to kind of walk them through, like, this is how you put a post up and this is what you do. Just tell us kind of in a nutshell, how would somebody, if they want to post on Indeed, what are the key options that they need to click and things like that?
So the key options are first the pay. You got to get the pay range, and there's different ways you can do it. You can do it by salary, you can do it by a pay range, you can do the exact amount. Hey, you're getting $20 an hour or whatever. So you can, pay is very important. The benefits, you need to put something. The days worked, I know on Dental Post you can kind of like check off what days. Unfortunately, on Indeed, you either have to put like Monday to Friday, no weekends, things like that. They're little tags. So, and what these tags do is if somebody's searching for keywords, it helps pull your posts up to their board. They have an Indeed job board of their own. So, it helps pull that up when they do searches. So, and then I think the other thing is the job post itself. It needs to be clear what you're looking for. Vague is okay if you're open to anybody hiring, but the more detail you give, the better we can weed out candidates, because again, people do blindly apply. They're just going through and clicking, but at least we can see right out the bat, they don't have any of the experience that was on the job post. And then I think the other thing is sponsor. Yeah. You need to sponsor your post. And I have this feeling, and I've had a feeling for a while, that Indeed's going to go to a paid board eventually. So you might as well just go ahead and start sponsoring your post. There's two ways to do it. You can do pay per click, and I don't like it because you can set a daily limit, but it gets very expensive very quickly because, and I was explaining this to one of your clients on Friday, anybody that clicks on it, they don't have to apply, you get charged for it. And it's like 15, 20 cents, but if you have a ton of people looking at it and moving on, it does. It adds up very quickly and it automatically charges. So it's something that you would have to stay on top of. It's time consuming, and it's not easy to control. Yeah. So, and then you have the pay per applicant. Now, pay per applicant rates vary depending on two things: how many job posts are already up with this for the same job, and the area. So those are the two deciding factors. So like for a DFW or for Dallas, the pay per job is very low because there's not a lot of people looking for like an RDA. However, the quality is not always there. So but for like Frisco, where there's not many dental or dentists, but there's a lot of applicants, or there's a lot of job posts, you want yours to stand out, so it can be a little bit more expensive per applicant. So essentially what pay per applicant means is you get the applicant, you have 72 hours to decline that applicant before you're charged, or you can take the resume and 72 hours go by and keep and pay for it. The highest rate I've seen as of late was $78 an applicant. And I know and that was just recent. That was for one of your clients, I think, that's looking for an associate dentist. So anyway, that one I was floored, but I've seen as low as $18. So it just, again, depends on how high in demand the job is. So those are the key things. I think also learning how to utilize Indeed as far as, there's deal breakers you can put on there. What deal breakers do is if you tell Indeed that this is a must-have skill or certification, education, whatever it is, it will automatically decline those applicants that don't meet that criteria. So,
which saves you money in this particular case.
Yes, it does. So you want, but you don't want too many deal breakers, because then you're going to potentially miss out on certain applicants. So thankfully, you can have deal breakers, and you can say if it's a must-have or if it's a nice-to-have. Okay. Nice-to-have, it'll still push the applicant through, but it'll just say, hey, they meet certain qualifications, but not all. The other one, it will automatically just reject them and send them an email letting them know they were not, their application was rejected. So those are I think the top four things that you should really pay attention to when you're posting your job posts.
And it sounds like you would recommend it needs to be sponsored. You and I have talked about that. Like, it's just almost not worth it to put an Indeed post up now without sponsoring it. And you recommend the pay per applicant. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have to really, either the dentist himself or herself or a team member is going to have to really stay on top of those, because you only have 72 hours to decline the applicant. Reasons that you would decline the applicant would obviously be the qualifications aren't there. Mm-hmm. They don't have the amount of experience.
Temperature.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopping all over the place. Mm-hmm. Looks like a really bad work history. Mm-hmm. Or if there is a must-have skill set, like they must have corona polishing, and that's not there.
Or some of them like bilingual. Some of them, of our clients, need bilingual. So. And
it sounds like some of that you can obviously put in the must-haves, so that they would automatically be not pushed through. So it's pay attention. It sounds like to those must-haves. But I think you make such a good point, and we've got to be really careful with having too many must-haves.
Yes.
Because if we do that, we won't
get any
with anybody.
Yeah. So it's a fine balance, and Sydney and I are constantly going through and re-updating job posts. That's another point. Yeah. We only keep job posts up every 2 weeks. So what we do is we go in. Sydney refreshes them over every 2 weekends. So. And we may change some verbiage. We may take out a deal breaker. We may up the pay a little bit at like $1. So just to get those applicants applying. Of course, we use pay range. Mm-hmm. So we're not promising you are going to be paid this. So we do utilize, I do suggest using the pay range, because you're going to get more
a wider pool of applicants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea too. Refreshing the job post, updating it with new information every 2 weeks, because that way it kind of keeps it fresh. Yeah. And changing things, kind of tweaking, especially because, again, we've got people, thankfully, from all over the nation that listen to this. And for your particular area, this job post may be informing you what's important. So if we started out with an $18 to $20 a range post and we didn't get any applicants, and then we bumped that to 20 to 22 and you got a few applicants, it's like, that's eye-opening for this particular area to see that that's a more competitive pay.
Exactly.
So using that to really learn about when you're getting the most applicants, I think is really good. So Indeed, I think that's super helpful. I feel like we get a ton of questions on Indeed.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more. You can do campaigns on Indeed. I haven't really dove into that, just because I feel like that's an extra added step, and I haven't really understood it. But if somebody is interested in it, I will dive into it and look into it. But since me and Sydney have a good thing going right now, I don't think there's a need for the campaign. It's like constant running, so you don't have to think about it and worry about it. But I don't want to give that much control.
Yeah, exactly.
to Indeed. I still want to be able to see what's going on.
I don't trust you enough. Oh my goodness. Now, you were telling me earlier, I think it was when Sydney, you and I had a phone call, that we had seen a trend recently with candidates on Indeed, and this ebbs and flows. It's just, it varies so much, but we saw a trend for a certain period of time where we would get qualified applicants. We would reach out to them and no response. And that was new for us. We had not seen that.
Yes, I feel like we went through a 2 to 3 week period of that, and you brought up a really good point. You have to watch what's going on. So if you are needing someone urgently, but school's about to start, or summer's about to start, or you're not going to get very many applicants, and we learned that the hard way this last round. For the last 2 weeks of summer, nobody wants to change jobs real quick because they have kids or they're trying to, get ready for things like that. So that's another thing you kind of have to watch for and be prepared for. I mean, go ahead and put your job post out there, but just be prepared not to expect a ton of applicants during those. And holidays is another good example. So that's a good point.
It's
another trend.
Well, and we couldn't figure it out, and then we were like, oh wow, this is right before school starts, and we were just not getting responses.
And then the week after school started, guess
Boom.
what? We got, and I was on vacation, and Sydney just kept getting all these, responses, and it was like all of a sudden they were back, and it's like, okay. In fact, she was having candidates reach out to her that she reached out to over a week ago, or a week prior. So, that just kind of reconfirms that they were just really busy getting other things, and so it happens.
So, what is your recommendation on? Okay, I'm a doctor. I've got an applicant that came in. It looks like they fit the bill. What should the doctor do? Like, how quickly should they respond to that person? We've got our whole system lined out. What is your recommendation?
I recommend within the first 48 hours of the applicant applying, especially since you're paying per applicant, so that kind of keeps you accountable, right? So you're like, okay, I have to contact this candidate, or I'm going to be charged, and then they may not even respond. So you have to reach out to them. We have 3 methods of reaching out. Sometimes we don't get on Indeed for some reason. If they apply with there's 2 ways to apply on Indeed. It's through uploading a resume, or you can fill out a template resume through Indeed. If they do the Indeed route, then they get an Indeed email, and there's an inbox. So you can't. It's really difficult to email them because it's just going back to Indeed. It's not going to their personal email. So but there's a way to message them from the platform as well. So we'll message them on Indeed within 48 hours, and then the next day we'll text or call, leave voicemails, do whatever we can to get in touch with them. It is work, and you just have to expect that it's going to be work, because in my opinion, they're in control. We aren't, unfortunately. The hiring is so bleak right now that they know that. The applicants know that. So they're going to want to see that, hey, you're really interested. So you've got to stay on top of it. I wouldn't reach out more than 3 times, though. If they're not responsive, move on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sounds like all 3 methods. You really want to hit them on the Indeed platform with a message within 24 to 48 hours. The sooner the better, because then if they're non-responsive, you can decline them and save yourself that money. And then Indeed platform message, text, and phone call if need be, all within that 24 to 48 hours. And I think you make a good point. Like, expect the work. Like, they're not just going to come flooding to you, wanting to work for you. Like, we really have to pursue them, but within limit, where we're not going to keep hounding this person that applied, 4, 5, 6 times. No. If they didn't respond to those 3 forms of contact, they're done.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're also seeing is that there's multiple people reaching out to them. Obviously, we've had a couple where we've actually gotten all the way through the hiring process, and we're about to offer them a position, and they have either declined the working interview because they got they got an offer and they're going to accept it, or they were at that point where they were getting offers from the doctor and then from other practices, and so they're having to make a decision on which one. So and I feel like this has been a thing now for again since COVID. It's just everybody's hurting for people, and so they're
in hot demand. And so I think moving as quickly as possible. I know our goal when we are supporting a client with hiring is we want to get that candidate ideally in front of the doctor within a week. Yes. Because we just don't know. You have to know they're being contacted by so many other offices, and so if you want to be in line, you gotta move quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think how many times have we had to redo this process because of things we're learning along the way? It's like, all right, we got to tighten the reins. We have to reach out to them at this time, and then get them in front of the doctor at this time. As soon as we're done, contacting them and having that initial phone call, get the notes over to the doctor within same day. I try to do it. If it's later in the evening, I'll send it out first thing in the next morning, but at least, the next 12 hours, get it out to them. Start checking those references. That's another one that we're starting to do before the doctor even asks for it, just because we feel that strongly about that candidate and we know the need is there. So if we can get all that legwork done up front, and then if there is a working interview required, at least we'll have everything else done.
And I think that too is probably another major tip on this episode is, if you can get all that groundwork done before the candidate's even in the office, then you have the opportunity, if they come in for an interview or a working interview, whatever the doctor's process is. But if you've already checked references, you've already got the background permission check on file. Maybe you haven't run the background check yet, but you've got it on file to where you can offer that person while they're in the office even. You could offer them a job contingent upon their background check. And then it just speeds up the process all that much more. Whereas if you get them in for an interview, now, hey, candidate, get me your references. We're waiting on references. Maybe that takes a few days. Now we're contacting the references. Maybe that takes another day or two. And now will you also fill out the background check form? It's just the longer we wait past that interview, there's a chance of them being hired by somebody else.
Exactly. Time kills deals is what I say.
I love that. That needs to be the name of this episode. Time kills deals.
Yes.
I agree completely. And I think that's so important to consider here.
It is.
Any other thoughts on Indeed before we talk about some of our other methods of advertising?
No, just have a dedicated person on top of it. That's it. You got to go, you know what, you're on top of this job post until we hire someone. And, whether it be an office manager or a dental, I don't know about dental assistants, but, somebody that can just kind of hang on to it and make sure, at least check it once a day. And not make sure those charges are racking up. So
I think that is the one fear that so many have with Indeed is the cost of it. I've heard it's expensive, and you're like, no, not if you stay on top of it. It can be controlled and managed where it doesn't cost you a fortune. So if the doctor himself or herself can't do it, then tag a team member in. Even if that's not an office manager, it's just like, hey, here's your task for the next 2 weeks. Like, every day you need to be on top of this.
And they don't necessarily even need to be looking for the candidate. They can just say, okay, yes, they applied, no, this is, and decline who they need to, and then pass on any information they need to whoever's doing the hiring. So it's fairly simple.
It is. It's just like you said, it's time intensive, and we got to be prepared to work for it.
Yes, I agree.
It's not going to come easily like it used to. So in addition to Dental Post, Indeed, we also, one of the things, and Sydney really does this on behalf of a lot of our clients, is she'll reach out to RDA schools. If a client's hiring for an RDA, she'll reach out to hygiene schools. If a client's hiring for a hygienist, and let them know. She'll give them the details of the job opening. And then if we're looking for an associate, helping our clients with an associate, then she'll reach out to the dental schools as well.
Yes.
I would say overall we don't see a huge return on investment with that, but you just never know.
Exactly.
It's worth getting the word out there in multiple different ways.
I agree.
And then the other thing that we do is also marketing. Sydney will create a little, what do you call that, where it's kind of a visual of the job post.
She's
leaving me right now.
I think like a graphic.
A graphic.
Okay.
That's what I'm sorry. There's a simple word and it's gone. She'll create like a graphic with the job post information, and then she'll put it out on sites where she thinks.
Yeah, LinkedIn is a big one. The reason why I highly suggest looking for professionals on LinkedIn is because they're professionals. And you're not going to find all that social media. I mean, you can, it just depends. But it's LinkedIn is basically for professionals, and so that's why that was the first place I said, hey, you want to put this out there, because especially for associate dentists. I'm not really sure about hygienists and other facets of the business, but it's always, yes, it's good to put it wherever you can. And again, social media, we do we try to utilize Facebook. At one point in time, Facebook had a job board. Just recently they got rid of it about 6 months ago.
At just the right time, right?
I know, because I think that's how I found you.
Yes.
So I went back to what I know, and they were taking it away. So anyway, she's posting, and so what we're having to do now is join some groups. We're trying to join all these dental focus groups, whether it be a hygienist group or assistant group. Now some of them are very selective on who they let in, so but you never know. You just go through, and so she's posting there as well. She's posting on our social media too. So for I think, because you have a social media for your business, so she's posting there, and just doing. Oh, and then she also did extensive research on different types of job boards outside of Indeed. Again, they're not as fruitful, which is funny because Indeed hasn't really been fruitful either. But they're not any better. They're just not any better, and they actually, some of them cost way more than Indeed. I think like ZipRecruiter is expensive.
Yes.
I can't remember the other ones, but that's the first one that came to mind. But we are looking at other ways to just kind of get the word out there, and hopefully,
And if we find another good one, we'll let listeners know. But at this point, we thankfully have seen that there's not necessarily anyone that's better than, and we don't necessarily encourage like, oh, go post in Indeed, go post on ZipRecruiter, go post here, because it just, that money racks up at some point. So if you can be really good with Indeed, maybe sprinkle in dental posts, but then really grassroots efforts, like get the word out through your social network. If you've got a practice Facebook page or a practice Instagram, put a graphic up there that says, our team is expanding. You can make it feel like it's a positive thing and not like we're desperate.
No.
If you come in for your appointment, there's no team members here. So we don't want it to feel like that, but we can definitely make it seem like, our team is expanding. If you know anybody that's looking in, into a great office, we'd love to hear from, your friends. And sometimes that word gets around. I know that my clients have always been hesitant on that. They're like, what if like a patient that I can't stand applies? I'm like, you know what? Say that somebody else on your team is hiring and they didn't accept your application. It's not me. I still love you as a patient.
Exactly.
So you punt the blame somewhere else. And, but it really does take grassroots efforts of getting the word out. So.
Yes. And I think also, I don't know if any of your clients do this, but also have an incentive program to your own team members. Say, bring in, they know people. They work in a specific specialty. So, they conjugate and talk to other people that do the same type of job as them, and so have an incentive program and to help bring in, and of course have it contingent to like after 90 days if they work out. Doesn't have to be like, oh, I'll give you this much when they get hired. You can have a plan. So
make sure that person works out for you before you pay out.
So,
I love that. And again, that's grassroots. And sometimes we don't think about that, but when our well has run dry in other categories, like we have to get creative. And to your point, your team is networked with other people.
Yes, absolutely.
So tap into that network. So, oh my gosh, I feel like this is so helpful. And I feel like the clients that we have already know a lot of this information, but hopefully this is a repeat for them and good information for all of our listeners. Any final thoughts or feedback that you have? I feel like you've given so much.
Hang in there.
We're
doing, I feel like it's not seen on the back end what we do. We work. Sydney, she does go back to school this week, but she's still behind the scenes doing her thing. Where, we have you guys at the top of our mind all the time. And, you know, we want you to have people. We want you to get, you know, we want you to be fully staffed because that makes everybody happy. So we feel, does. And when we feel your desperation, we feel your desperation. And
we feel desperate sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
It's increasingly frustrating to have people no show or accept another offer from somewhere else, or if they're not showing up to even the phone screens that Sydney schedules with them. That's another trend, by the way. I could come up with trends all day long, but that's another trend that they, you know, they're, for whatever reason, they're just not showing up. So, you know,
which is frustrating. And you're thinking, how does this happen when we've gone through all this effort to get this phone screen or even an in-person interview? But it's not personal.
Exactly.
It is
you. It's them, not you.
So true. Yeah, don't be defeated by that. I know that's hard, you know, when they're desperate for somebody, we feel so wounded by that, but it's like, it just is the name of the game right now, unfortunately. And at least the applicant is showing their true colors in the interview process rather than 6 months into the employment with you. So,
and we do have a blacklist. So if they do no show you or us, they don't get an interview with any of Bethany's clients that forward. Yeah. So, you know, just if y'all come across any that we need,
it's a small world.
I know. And also, other than hang in there, have a plan. Just have a plan for the long haul. It's sometimes, you know, we get lucky, but that hasn't been the norm lately. So just have a plan.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so glad that our listeners have gotten to hear your voice. You're behind the scenes on the podcast too.
Yes.
This podcast wouldn't come out every Monday if it weren't for Danielle. So we're super thankful for her.
I get the pleasure of making sure you guys get Bethany and Dr. Cuba every week.
So listeners, round of applause for Danielle, please.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks again for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.